Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. Today's session is all about turning process models into living digital twins. We'll keep it practical and focused, and especially if you're in regulated industry or simply looking for a smarter way to scale and improve operations. iGraphics was recently named a leader in digital twins of an organization's solutions by QKS Group in their 2025 Spark Matrix, further validating the approach we'll share today with you. So let's take a look at today's agenda so you know what's ahead. We'll start by grounding the conversation in why digital twins matter and what's driving the need for them now. Then we'll walk through 5 practical ingredients to help you move from process models to digital twins. From there, we'll bring in our strategic partner, IGX Solutions, to talk about how accelerators and proven approaches can jumpstart results. Then we'll show it all in action with a live demo, share a success story, and wrap up with a Q&A session. With that, again, welcome. I'm Don Hart, Director of Global Marketing here at iGraphics, and I'll be your host today. I'm joined by Christian, our Solutions Consulting Director in EMEA, and Trevor Moore from IGX Solutions, one of our key strategic partners. Before we dive in, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. Everyone's been muted, but we really encourage you to submit questions anytime using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We've left time at the end to address those and have some discussions. And yes, the session is being recorded. Everyone who registered will receive a link to the replay. Let's start with a big picture and a big number. In 2023, global spending on digital transformation hit a little over $2 trillion. That's a staggering investment number. But the results, not so impressive. Industry reports consistently show that up to 70% of these initiatives fail to deliver their expected outcomes. And in regulated industries like banking, healthcare, insurance, and manufacturing, that failure rate comes with some serious risk, whether it's compliance gaps, inefficiency, or even loss of market competitiveness. So the question we need to ask is why? Why are so many of these efforts falling short? One of the biggest issues is that companies are trying to do too much, too fast, without really understanding the complexity underneath. They start with high expectations, but fast forward 18 months and there's little progress, no ROI, no momentum. Stakeholders get underwhelmed, support fades, and in many cases, the whole thing just quietly stalls out. Why does this happen? There are 3 common pitfalls we see again and again. First, poor visibility. Leaders can't see the full picture, so they're falling behind. Second, a weak grasp of how processes interact. You make a change in one area and suddenly you're triggering issues somewhere else. And third, a rush to automate, but without first understanding or aligning the processes. And this is where digital twins come in. They solve these challenges directly, and we'll show you how next. Okay, let's talk about why digital twins matter now. At the core, it comes down to 3 things that business need most. Businesses need smart decisions. Digital twins turn static models into living insights. You're no longer guessing, you're acting on real data. Secondly, businesses need faster innovation. You can test, you can model, you can simulate changes without risking live operations. It's a safe way to adapt, iterate, and move quickly. And then thirdly, businesses need operational resilience. You can visualize how everything is connected. You can spot and address risk before they become problems. And this isn't theoretical. There are these are the exact reasons that digital twins are gaining momentum across industries. Let's take a moment to clarify what a digital twin actually is, because there's a lot of confusion out there. A digital twin is a living digital version of something real like a process, such as a loan application or an insurance claim workflow, something real like a system, such as a customer onboarding platform or an ERP module, something real like a product or an asset, such as a medical device or even an entire medical care center. And then last but not least, something real like a person, like a patient, an employee, or a customer. What sets it apart is that it evolves. Digital twins doesn't just document how something works, it continuously reflects how it's performing, changing, and interacting with everything around it. That's very different from a one-time diagram or a static model. Digital twins adapt to change and generate insights that help you make better decisions faster. They use data and logic to simulate, monitor, and prove how things work across people, systems, and decisions. And it's not just for machines or Internet of Things anymore. And finally, you don't need to be a data scientist to use one. If you have a process model, whether it's in iGraphics or another tool, you're already halfway there. Digital twins connect that model to data and give your team a smarter way to operate. Now that we've defined what a digital twin is, let's talk about how to actually get started. The biggest mistake we see trying to tackle everything at once. Remember that $2.2 trillion of investment and 70% failure rate? That's why we recommend a smarter approach. Start small, scale smart. Begin with one process, get a quick win, demonstrate ROI, then expand to more teams, more processes, or a department. Build momentum as you go. And then eventually you'll be able to scale digital twins across entire business units and enterprise operations. That's the run stage. So this is what Gartner and others call the crawl, walk, run approach. It's not about moving slowly. It's about moving deliberately with early success that you can build upon. And with digital twins, that approach isn't just possible, it's proven. Trevor will show you how it works in practice in just a few moments. So, what does it actually take to make this work? Let's look at 5 ingredients. We call this the recipe of a digital twin. First, apply accelerators. This is about starting with the end in mind and with what you already have. Accelerators include proven frameworks, reusable assets, and industry specific knowledge. And Trevor will take you deeper into this in just a moment on why it matters and how it speeds up success. Secondly, start with a model. You don't need to build everything from scratch. If you already have process models, great. If not, we'll show you how to get started quickly using tools like PIA, our Process Intelligence Assistant, or process mining for discovery, and that's part of the demonstration. Third, you want to enrich those models with data. So this step adds context, not complexity. And again, Christian will show you that context in those models during the demonstration. Data can come from logs, systems, even team knowledge. The goal here is to make the model smarter not heavier. Fourth, um, simulate and analyze scenarios. This is where it gets really powerful. You can model what if solutions before implementing the changes. And it helps you understand the impact so you can avoid costly surprises and move forward with confidence. And then fifth, this is the monitor and optimize. Digital twins aren't just for analysis, they're for continuous improvement, track performance, spot risk, and refine over time. And this is the area that some of our clients take and replicate it throughout their processes. One that comes to mind is healthcare. They created a best practice care center and then replicated those digital twins across more than 300 care centers in 30 different countries. Really powerful. Each of these steps build on the last, and together they bring your processes to life and help your teams operate with clarity and confidence. Now let's turn it over to Trevor to show how accelerators can jumpstart this journey. Trevor?
Great, thanks, Don. For a bit of context, here's a quick overview of IGX Solutions. We've been a trusted iGraphics implementation partner for over 15 years. Our core philosophy is process centricity, grounded in a single source of truth and validated by real data and always aimed at delivering measurable outcomes. We specialize in the full iGraphics process intelligence platform, and over the years, we've built deep expertise, long-standing client relationships, and a track record of delivering value that sticks and compounds every time you roll out our approach. So what have we learned along the way? Every organization is different, but most share the same challenges. The biggest threat to success is delayed benefit realization. Long monolithic transformation programs often miss the mark, as we've already identified, and by the time results show up, stakeholder confidence has waned. Perception is reality. If people don't see value early, they assume failure. So early wins aren't just nice to have, they're essential. That's why we focus on realistic expectations, stakeholder alignment, and most importantly, early visible success. A key lesson: modeling is the differentiator, not just process mapping, not drawing static diagrams. True digital twin capability requires modeling, simulation, measurement, and the right expertise. We've implemented digital twins across sectors using our accelerator package and proprietary thin, deep slice methodology. It works time and time again, consistently. So let's have a quick look at the accelerator approach. As Don's already said, we start with the best practice frameworks, industry standards, ISO guidelines, regulatory codes of practice, risk frameworks. All of these form the baseline structure for your digital twin. Then we layer in the intelligence using iGraphics platform, process mining, process modeling, process simulation, and even automation. This creates a dynamic data-driven model. From there, we apply our thin, deep slice approach. Rather than building layer by layer over time, risking delays and rework, we take a vertical slice through the organization, focused on a clear outcome and delivering in 3 monthly sprints. We call it a slice of cake, complete with a cherry on top. That cherry is business value. We embed governance and standards from the start, transfer that slice into BAU, and repeat that model across the business. Every engagement is a collaboration. Our team works alongside of yours to co-deliver, build internal capability, and hand off when the structure and support are in place. We don't just deliver solutions, we build sustainable capability. So what does this look like in action? Let's move to a live demonstration, and Christian will now walk us through a digital twin implementation in a real-world loan application process. Christian, over to you.
Thanks, Trevor. Let me share my screen. So it should work. My screen should be visible. So I would guide you really through these 5 pieces was Don presented, like accelerating, building up a model, enrich the data, and of course, in the next step of optimization, simulate and monitor the stuff. So usually, if you and that's really what also IGX provides is use existing frameworks. There's like APQC frameworks and others where you have already a base setup. You can easily take them and import them as a first standard. May you have a structure, something in Excel, whatever, you can reuse it. And yeah, there's a lot of standards outside best practices, what you can take and reuse. That could be an accelerator as well. As soon you go in the next phase of using a model, there's also some capabilities what iGraphics is providing to really speed up this process. So let's maybe check how we can quickly discover processes on different ways. There's two technologies what we are providing. Let's start with one very common one. We want to create a model. Of course, it's in the first step a static visualization of a process flow. So we can, maybe from others, even Visio files. That could be also maybe a good source as an accelerator. Companies quite often or departments using Visios to visualize the flows. That could be already really an accelerator because you have something as a setup to discuss and fine tuning in that way. And that could be easily imported by drag and drop and starting and fine tuning. So that's like the accelerator and already going into the model. Of course, there's way like capabilities easy, a tabular model. I can send down an SME. He has the process knowledge. The table is filled out. Diagram is created automatically. That could be also a speed up. But we even trying to do it much faster from iGraphics side. So really the classic model, like you starting from the scratch, like in Visio, and you're moving shapes around, that's time consuming. And we want to provide really time to value. So there we invented technology PIA, Process Intelligence Assistant. So in this kind, if we say we need a bank loan process, we can use the AI capabilities. So of course, again, also from a best practice approach again, I can say, please, let's be kind, please create a bank loan process. And I'm saving a lot of time to set up the baseline, so moving shapes around to add the important people who should participate in the flow. I can speed up. Of course, it's a best practice. I need to customize that to my process. Of course, banks doing and financial service doing all the same, but different. And we need to document and change that. So here right now, we see from a best practice approach, several steps and 2 roles what are included in my process in case of a bank loan. So that's one you see entering with a prompt, directly getting a model. And I think you will agree with me. If you would do that in Visio, it will take much more time first to find the steps and also to put the shapes together in a flow. And maybe, and that's especially in a lot of your industries, what I see, if it's a financial industry, healthcare, usually you spend time and created some SOPs, work instruction documents. So there's a lot of knowledge inside in a written document with a lot of text. And of course, you can take this one and translate that manually in a BPM diagram. So of course you need an expert, you need to understand, you need time to read through the document and translate that. So therefore we invented Peer also to upload these documents. So I can, instead of translate myself, I go inside and where I have my folder, live demonstration, there's the process request alone, and then please create a process and use the table. Or let's be more specific, from uploaded document. And you will see that the new process, because we're using real data, we described the process already internally in a lot of prosa. I will make a much more detailed process with more roles, and maybe all the manual specific, bank specific activities are inside. So again, we're taking that and starting to create a model, but really more time efficient. So therefore, we're using Peer to save a lot of time. So that will be maybe also helping, like Trevor said, if you're pointing out on the first piece of cake, you can set up the first one, and then you can use it as soon you have enriched that to the next piece of cake. So you really can set up the first steps very quickly. And now you see we have a much more detailed process. So if I go finish that, of course we can fine tune that. There's a lot of capabilities, translating, optimizing, add additional informations. Why he switched here. Here should be the diagram. So if we scroll also a little bit into the process, we see even there's different roles and some manual steps are included, like even arranging the appointment, welcome, everything is documented and provided in the first way. And that's usually who already worked with this kind of BPM tools knows how long it takes to build up the first model from scratch, step by step, and discussing that, maybe using a brown paper to draw it somewhere because I don't have a tool, and then translate. And here with Peer, we can speed up the process massively. Okay, so of course, we have right now a diagram, a model. That's static. But now, like Don said, there's additional important information to really set up our digital twin, and this is also real data. We want to have metrics. How long does some steps taking? How many transactions we are doing? And therefore, we're using also in the discovery phase another technology like process mining. It's not based on the document, it's more on the log data, what is executed in the core banking system. So if there's a request, we're going into core banking, doing the analysis, performing different steps, and then a flow is generated. And that's also really important to know and compare it with the documented piece, with the static diagram, to get 100% transparency. Because we need also to know the manual steps, but all the digital steps. The mining, of course, based on the log data, can focus on the digital footsteps, what the employees let in the core banking system. So if we take the same, and here we have the bank loan, and you see here right now, I have then different kind of metrics. Of course, you will decide what metrics are important for you to keep them, but we can analyze. But and now I want to switch over, because this kind of KPIs can deliver BI tools and so on. I agree, But that next, what I'm showing, that's not possible with this iTool, because iGraphics Process Mining analyzes the log files, the steps, and bring that in a flow. So it's automatically creating a BPM flow for you, how the employee is executing the loan process. So then we see here, and that's really the reality what I see in projects. It's not straightforward. We don't have like 2-3 variants like in our static diagram. It's much more complex. Employees are creative. They have different orders and so on by executing the process. And that could be happening, of course, impacting the efficiency of the process. Even maybe risk some compliance problems in the bank area. If you don't do a proper KYC steps, also analysts, know your customer, all the checks. And if you onboard the customer without it could lead to a big problem. And if we go a little bit deeper inside, you see there's a lot of variants what they are executed. But of course, we can focus on the most common variants that we say, okay, what are, sorry, there is already a filter inside. So let me take out. So you see that's even more complex. There's like 70,000 loans progressed, and that's all the different ways how the employees executed different steps. But now we will just filter on the most common variants. So I can select the variants, filter, and then you see the system is creating what looks a little bit more familiar with a BPM diagram as a flow. And I getting metrics to it. So you also directly see how long some steps in average take, how long the waiting time is. Even you could check additional metrics like the costs behind, the frequency, how many these steps are executed. And important to know, based on the coloring, as darker the color is showing, is telling you that, also process mining is telling you, as higher is this kind of delay, number, and so on. It can point out directly a bottleneck or something out of by bringing this log data. And what you can also do, so if you didn't start it with the design part, you can take this one and transfer that as your first as-is model and create a first BPM diagram. What is really just based on your log data and focused on your most important variants. You see it like just from it directly, we selected 3 variants, and that system on the top left side, you see it's calculating directly how many cases are covered by this kind of variance. So of course you will say, yeah, 40%, that's not enough. So we would then maybe select more variants to got maybe on the 60, 70%. What is a good rate? We said that's standard processes, how we executing, and then we could generate again the BPM diagram on it. Or what else? If we have this kind of flow and we have the modeled out diagram, we can do a conformance check. So we really overlaying our thinking, how we think the process should be executed with the reality. And we see in this example, all steps green or are documented, they're fine. But let's take all the variants in consultation here. Then we will see there's steps popping up like this one. They are not documented. So there's a yellow. Of course, I can then show what are not conformed. So it's pointing more clear out what step is red. So let's go inside here. And then, of course, you can select this one step and then also analyze how often the step is executed. This is really an important step, what should be documented and so on. Like I mentioned, we're really trying to get 100% transparency here on our process flows. I would slightly, so that's maybe also the point what we said, take one process, start analyzing, building up the piece, and then we can build up the whole cake. If we have the whole cake, just maybe also to show the example, if we go the next level. So wait a second, let me also show it quickly. Trevor mentioned it. For people who don't know the difference, process maps and process models. Process maps are just really the simple visualization. It's plain, not linked informations. If I need to change something, I need to check every single diagram. And I can't also see any kind of impacts or relationships to other informations like resources, IT systems. Therefore, we setting up a model. How we can do that? So if we check out that, we can access information. So let's see what I have on the framework based on loan. So I get a list of different loans examples. You see customer loan, request loan, and there could be a home loan, and I will select this one. And then we see it's loading automatically a lot of additional information. The race, the information could be delivered. And we see the input and output. So after this one, what's going out? We see strategies behind norms for the regulation. So you're building up a 3D print, I would say, of the company with all the relationships. So, for example, because I linked that, and we see from the norms here, the ISO 9001, a classic quality management norm, is now linked with this process. If I go to this element, I will see all other processes as well who are linked to this norm. So we're going here on the relationships, and now you see a whole list of all other processes. And now I hope you get the idea that you see it's not anymore just a plain static picture. It gets much more dynamic. It has relationships linked to other information, have the real data. You get a completely different picture. And you can make much more better data-driven decisions. I love this example because it's so simple. If we want to optimize a process, how you prioritize, what process you want to optimize. Do you listen to the department who is shouted as loudest and you want to that they shutting up? Or do you checking, oh, let's focus on the process, what helps us to reach 3 company goals? And this information is right now in the model. And then I can make maybe completely different and better decisions for the company because I have additional data. So it's not just listening to one department and say yes or no. I can make a broader analysis and make a real better decision. And that's what we want to drive you from iGraphics, to make data-driven decisions. And therefore, we're building up the digital twin with all these aspects. And therefore, just also to show a complete example here, I would go in my process map. That's maybe what you have at the end. And that's also what Trevor has a lot of knowledge to guide you to set up something like that and to structure. But here we have our process map. We go into the loan and request loan, and then we have the whole process. And if I go here in the details, you will see there's more information. Like what I add on the beginning, we have all the process informations, but we can have that also on the activity level. So you see there could be more informations inside. Instructions, we see what IT systems is used for that. Of course, if he's calling and arranging a call, he needs a telephone system. But also other informations in the later step could be like here, is there any kind of latest promotions? A lot of additional data could provide also for the reading participants, not only just for the experts and analysts. All the employees could use the informations, and maybe also in a pretty nice way, that they say, okay, let me check what's the happy path through the system. And now I let guide it to the process and get all the informations inside. And if I need the data in a static model, I can generate SOPs by clicking the button, and then you get an extract. But this is a living system and updating. And like mentioned, if there's a department changing, it's centrally saved. It could be automatically changed by an HR system, whatever. What is the leading system? But it's updating your whole model. It's updating all your reports. You can directly make decisions on the latest information. That leads me also to the next step. So if we, and you see now, there's really a really detailed model behind. And now could be a next exercise to say, okay, now we identified the process, we want to optimize them. It's helping us to reach our goal, whatever. And that's also our recommendation. And may you remember the steps after enriching all the data we have, like to simulate and analyze maybe at the next step. Don't rush directly in optimization with RPA or whatever. Check your variance. Check what options you have and select the best option. So just to show, we can then analyze that and a comment to it. Of course, you can set up the simulation with all the data manually, but you saw before I used mining. And mining is gathering all the real data, times, waiting times, resources, and we can also, again, speed up the simulation project by using this mining data. That's also like, and therefore we have that also in the digital twin. That we can run much easier in simulation because we have real data. It's again not that we have to take here assumption that this task, I think, needs about 5 minutes or maybe 10 minutes, not sure, because 5 or 10, that's already the double number. They could have impacting the process really hard. So I stopped it right now. So let's run the simulation. You see, it's running through, generating. We can follow the transaction. We can also see then maybe where we generate bottlenecks. And that's also important in the analysis phase, that we can run scenarios and see, because we say here's maybe a bottleneck, so we optimize in this department. But simulation can show if we optimize here in this lane, what does it mean for this lane, what it means for this lane, or for the other lane, or for the upcoming process? What does it mean from end to end on impacts? Yeah, and if I created this variant, so I can just execute, of course, getting the results out of it, and then I have a really detailed numbers on that. You see on the process level, we can analyze that on the activity level, resources, cost, all the metrics what we put in, we can run. The important piece is then what I mentioned before: generate the variance and then pick the best option. I have it here that we say right now just was one scenario, but we have here a baseline. This line here on the top. That's our baseline. That's how our process works right now. That means we have a little bit more easier to read. In the current baseline, that means how our process work right now. In average, we're doing like 274 loans. That's the current cost internally per loan. That's the total cost over time. We have here the cycle time of the loan. That means we need close to 1 month with some customers to close a loan, with analyzing proposal, etc., and so on. And then a lot of additional. We also get, like, say, maybe on the most cost-intensive resource, the accountants, the sales guys, they have an idle time. And now that's the next scenario. Our growth plan. We're investing in people, applications. What does it mean on the process? And we can generate the data before we just doing a POC, testing that in real environment. We can just simulate. We see with the growth plans, doing a 120% increase of the loans, what we can handle with additional people and so on. But we also see maybe it's not the best approach. Somehow it's not a good relationship because our average cost per loan is increasing. The total cost, of course, increasing, but also maybe interesting, very interesting, the cycle time could be massively reduced because a lot of bottlenecks or waiting times are taken out. And that's what I want to bring to you. As soon you have all these information, you can analyze, simulate, test it really like virtual, and make your decision what's the best option. And of course, you then compare the options between and then select maybe on a specific. We want to be quicker because the market is requesting that we're delivering faster. Then I can focus on that. Or I have cost pressure. So I can focus on reducing or optimizing the cost. Or I have a growth plans. I need to grow. I need to get more output. So I can really focus on the metrics, what I want, and then selecting the best option, how to optimize the process. And that's not even the last step. When we optimize, whatever the solution, if it's hiring people, embedding an automation solution or whatever, we can start from the beginning. So we're going there not in the discovery phase with mining, so we're going in the real-time monitoring. And there's a next capabilities. I checked it so right now, but I don't have it in this process. I need really to jump in another process quickly, in a sales process, just to give you an idea. It's the same process we have. So you see there's a flow behind. Several activities are executed in different orders. We also call it like spaghetti diagram, but you see here, that's the flow. And now I'm real-time monitoring the system and what iGraphics could be in case of optimizing or identifying problems. It's a predictive analytics. So what I would like just in the process filtering, what processes are still in progress. So they're not finished. Let's select this one. We see here, there's several steps executed, but it's not finished. But with the prediction, so if I click on here, the system is calculating what steps will happen, how long does it take, and give you also a much more proactive monitoring, so you can maybe impact the problem before it's really happened. So because you see, oh, we're running a problem, we delay with the deadline, let's readjust the resources, because on this project we have fines. If we not deliver on time, that's a problem. So let's leave our focus, put some additional resources here and move them from other. So you can really impact the business with your all the data, what you gathered in iGraphics. And yeah, so that's what I wanted to show light from. You see, there's ways to accelerate that. You're starting with some model, different technologies to quickly get the model off. Forget the really time intensive 1 day spending time to draw a model. Can really speed up. Enrich it with real data. You can use it later for the simulation analysis piece, and then really optimize that and going in a continuous improvement process. Hopefully that gives you an idea. You saw the interface. I'm happy also to show, if somebody's interested more in detail, maybe also on a specific use case on you. I selected today the bank loan. But yeah, that's from my perspective.
Great. Thanks very much for that demo, Christian. It really brought the concepts to life. Now I'm going to share with you a real world example of how this works in practice. One of our clients came under regulatory scrutiny. Sanctions were issued, followed by enforcement actions. Now, they were required to demonstrate not only that they understood their obligations under their license to operate, but that they were actively doing what they had documented. So in response, the client collated uh, all their knowledge. They went around the organization and they centralized the documentation and created a spreadsheet galore, if you like, to try and track and build what is a holistic overview. 9 months into that journey, they realized that the current approach and the tools they had, the team they had, they lacked focus and capability to deliver. The real issue is that they were dealing with relationships, not documents. And having seen what Christian's just shared, those relationships between things like systems, people, roles, activities, processes, risk controls, they needed a home. And that's where the digital twin capabilities of the iGraphics platform really came into its own. And we were able to support this client. They were really low on confidence, having been at this already for the best part of a year. They were not making progress. They hadn't moved the dial at all. So they pivoted and they came to find a solution provider that specializes in not the tools as such, but the outcomes. And we went through a selection process with them. We brought to the table our own accelerator, the frameworks, the methodology, and of course the iGraphics platform. And having been selected, we started working with them to define a targeted program so that we could deliver measurable and visible change. So we went into a scoping period for around about a month and identified and qualified sort of the first immediate thin deep slice, the first sprint, if you like. And as part of that, we also aligned the foundations, the governance, the standards, clear framework and roles, responsibilities using the RACI model. And we actually completed that first sprint in the first 3 months. And as part of that, we delivered a complete cycle, a measurement, measured, validated, designed, built, rolled out, trained, and hand over to the business. And this brought real benefits immediately. And from then on, the whole sort of thing became a rhythm. Every 3 months, a new slice, new measurable value, and sustained momentum. And the result, the outcome, was really the regulatory confidence was restored, internal ownership and engagement was embedded within the organization, and a consistent delivery at pace. So we ended up with a new home for process excellence, one that's owned and operated by the business. And that's the power of doing it right, slice by slice, and stepping back from those failures. So I think
Great.
that
Thank you.
takes us to Q&A, Don.
Yes, thank you, Trevor. Very good. So we do have a few questions in the Q&A box. I encourage you to add more. I'll take the first one here. Can we get a copy of the presentation, please? We will provide you the link to the replay of the video recording. If you need the presentation for help internally to do justification or whatever, reach out to me. One of us would be more than happy to help you. On iGraphics was recently listed as one of the leaders in digital twin of an organization. What's the difference between digital twin and DTOs? This is a common question, and quite honestly, the analyst community has created this confusion, but I like to think of it simply as digital twin being that digital representation of something real. A DTO is a composite of digital twins, but also includes other parts of the organization like HR, finance, purchasing, all of those other departments within the organization. So it's just a broader context of a digital twin. On the third question, can process mining help determine the resource requirement, bottlenecks, and cost for the process? Christian, I think you can take this one.
Yeah, for sure. That's the pretty nice thing, that the mining solution is analyzing the times and metrics automatically. It's even notifying reworks. So it's identifying in one process if one step was executed several times because there was changes, errors. And that's the system can point out this inefficiency and tell you that. We even have right now, and maybe that's versatile quickly to show, we have a so-called root cause analysis. If you have problems in the process and inefficiency somewhere, you could ask iGraphics in the process mining solution, so what's the problem behind? Let me see if oh no, I don't have it ready now. That's maybe would be an interesting piece if you say you want to use process mining for optimization to identify areas for improvements. I'm happy to show you some things live. But yeah, it's definitely used for that, but also for the first discovery that you say, okay, I get an idea how my employees executing the process.
I think it's probably worth just adding on to that as well, Christian. The simulation capability has been a long-term capability of iGraphics, and that specifically runs looking at sort of resource requirements, bottlenecks analysis, and costs for processes. So if you put the information into your model and simulate that, you will be able to use it for those purposes as well. And I think actually that kind of also touches on the next question, Don.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
I understand that
So
this tool can help also in measure phase of Lean Six Sigma projects to gather process data rapidly.
yeah. Go on, Christian.
If you want to add something, but yeah, my answer is clearly yes. It is exactly for this different kind of phases to discover, measure, and going further. We have more capabilities. We can run that just with design. We can combine that the different ways, but it's definitely used for this exercise.
Okay. Another question is, so iGraphics isn't a tool for end-to-end process automation. It can be integrated with those tools.
Yeah, so we have automation to offer as an optimization result, but we're working with technology partners. So we don't provide own automation solution because we see that customers quite often have some kind of automation solution. Makes no sense to replace it, but we can integrate with them. Usually always the model or some informations are important for that, and we can deliver this one. Maybe if I have a lot of manual steps and I want to start with a so-called low-code or human workflow automation, then the model is what we can take from iGraphics, give it to the automation to automate the process. But also from the other way around, as soon as I have a digital process with automation, We can put mining on that and discover additional optimizations. Do we have somewhere inefficiency? Why there's some steps taking long? Is there a problem from knowledge, learning? There's additional enablement needed. So we can integrate with that. So in our whole over story, we provide automation, but there's technology partners what we bring in as a whole package solution, so that you don't be scared as a customer to say to get in a situation this there ping pong that we say, oh, that's on the automation, and the automation, no, that's iGraphics. So we deliver the whole solution, ensure that it's running on your end and providing
It's
value.
it's probably worth just calling that out. I know that when we went through a real life scenario, we did mention our first 3 month thin deep slice sprint, if you like. That actually included a workflow automation element, because as we were saying, the requirement from the regulator was to connect the dots from this is what we think we do. These are things we should be doing. This is how we think we do it. And here's the actual workflow that we've implemented so that we evidence that we do exactly what we said we would do. And that was a cross team and function type of workflow. And it significantly reduced sort of what would take typically 12 hours a day just to complete that one area. We got it down to like 20 minutes where everybody was receiving a notification when it was their turn to do something, to do their perform their activity, and all of that was captured in a digital audit log and audit record. And that was using the iGraphics with the workflow integration of one of their partners. So absolutely you can do this, and it is something that we typically would advocate as a way of making sure that you're realizing the true benefit that you identified at the beginning, if you like.
Great. The next question is, do you use reference models of BIAN, the Banking Industry Architecture Network, to create business process models?
So should I, or do you want to add something, Trevor? So from my perspective, we are, from iGraphics, flexible. So we taking frameworks like this one and import and using that as an accelerator. I'm sure there are banks who are using that as a starting point to speed up the whole process. I don't know, Trevor, if you have already experienced and saw and used some of these, but I believe there's definitely
Yeah,
using.
there's a natural fit between all frameworks. They're all structured in a very similar way, with decomposition, hierarchical structure, all of which you can quite quickly emulate and incorporate into an iGraphics digital twin. So without sort of getting having that framework available to me right now, I'm confident that you'd easily be able to bring that into your iGraphics digital twin platform very quickly.
Christian, maybe you can address this one. Can you explain the key differences between how iGraphics and Scan AI leverage digital twin technology, particularly in terms of process discovery and operational insights?
So it's I would say an additional technology. We even partnering with Scan AI because they going on really on the task level itself to analyze the processes. So what we're doing a little bit more in the high level on process mining on the system, they're going really on the really deep. What email, what website was open, really in a task level, more deeper to analyze that and showing up the flow. But what is really missing, and we getting then the Scan AI data implanted in our model because we have much broader information. Trevor mentioned it, I didn't show it. All the risk and controls, what are implemented because of regulatory. How you want to track, maintain, and document it in Scan AI. There's no chance. Therefore, we need a database approach where we're storing all this information, combining this with a model, enriching that. So I would not see there's a difference between that's even more to say, okay, we partnering to get a more deeper insight. So Scanner Eye is more supportive for us to get deeper insights and more concrete metrics and enriching the whole model what we are providing. because we have at the end what I quickly showed, the whole process landscape where you can navigate through. You can use that as a knowledge base. You have a lot of additional information, strategies, your norms, risk controls. That's always what you don't get on technologies like process mining, task mining, because they're really focusing on the process, on the digital foot trap. But there's much more information what we need to store in our digital twin. So that's what I would say. Not really difference. It's more a partnership. What we doing with ScanAI. I hopeful that was somehow clear.
Yeah. I did have one question sent to me prior to the webinar. And since we have a minute or two left over, I'll provide it here. For someone just getting started, how do you recommend identifying that first process?
So, shall I take that one? It sounds more like a where do we start kind of
Yes,
question,
it
really.
does.
Please.
So yeah, I think this is probably the most frustrating part for companies is where do we start? It's like an author with writer's block or a creative painter looking at a blank canvas. It's like, where do we start? We often recommend that you start where failure is probably most visible or where regulatory or compliance or customer dissatisfaction is creating most pressure. Choosing a process that has got high impact, high visibility within the leadership team, but has got a manageable scope, something that's measurable, something that's going to allow you to generate a measurable outcome and output, so that you can really build momentum around the whole activity around the digital twin initiative. It's exactly where we sort of come in with our thin, deep slice method. We don't want to boil the ocean, but we will boil a kettle and we'll focus on one deliverable at a time. And as part of that initial sort of engagement, that's what we try and do is help you identify and quantify and qualify where to start. And I think even when you've identified the actual start point, there's still that fear of looking at a blank canvas. And that's where we say the accelerators, the frameworks, they all give you a baseline to start from. They all say, well, if this is what you're looking at, this is what you should have in your digital twin. And that's really important. It can align with best practice, world standards, and also with metrics that are common across the industry so that you can really start benchmarking in an objective fashion and not working or pandering to a subjective viewpoint within the business. And I think that's really important because what you really want to do is get people behind the initiative and you want to be able to demonstrate that successful outcome. Success sells. And if you want to drive this approach into an organization and bring people with you on the journey rather than kicking them from behind, you're kind of walking with them and you've got a framework that you can point to and says, we're going in this direction. So that's certainly where we would help, is just help you qualify and quantify the particular start points that you might have.
Okay, great. Hey, I want to thank everybody for participating and engaging with this webinar. If you don't mind, I would be open to emails from you on what other sections or deeper dives that you would like to take on digital twins. So I can be reached at don.hart@igraphics.com. Thank you, everybody.